my goodness, say hello to Randy Bachman, please. How are you, man?
Good.
Welcome back. Good to see you. How are things? Very good. Dude, you've done it. Yeah. Your radio show is fantastic, obviously, the Vinyl Tap. And then
So is yours.
Thank you very much.
Love it.
It's so nice to come on after
Sunday
you.
night is a good night for radio.
It really is radio, too. It's you and then it's us.
Yeah.
It's so much fun. Tales from Beyond the Tap is the story, and it really is. Tales from... like
It goes beyond what's edited out of the show.
Yeah, there's so much stuff in here and so much of your life, and it feels like you were just... You looked at your computer and went, forget it, I'm laying it out here, man.
Yeah.
Is that what happened?
Well, when I do the radio show, it's really not scripted. I just go and blurb, and Todd Elvidge edits it down. And some 10-minute rants become 1 or 2 minutes. So people wanted to know, what's the end of that story? What's the other 8 on the top 10 list? Because I only mentioned 2, and it's kind of cut out.
Right.
So that's why it's called Beyond the Tap. The stories just kind of go on until they reach a conclusion.
But
so it's more information.
The stories are deeply personal, a lot of them. It takes us back to an era where we first knew who you were. I imagine that must have been an interesting choice.
Basically, the choice came from John Einerson, who basically did my first book, and he also did the other Vinyl Tap book. He sat through the radio shows and pulled things and asked people and got all my emails and stuff. What did they want to know more about me? And basically, learning about me, they're learning about the bands, the Guess Who, Bachman-Turner, Overdrive, the other things I'd done, and growing up in Winnipeg in the 60s and the Canadian music scene and stuff. So that's kind of through my eyes.
And so did he come back to you and say, I need you to flush the story out, tell me some more?
Yes, and he also said, you know, what are your top 10 people who influenced your life negatively or positively? What are your 10 greatest songs? What are your favorite songs you wrote? What are your favorite guitars and why? And what people have really made a difference in your life? And this was done over a period of 5 or 6 months with little emails back and forth. Then I'd call him and work it all out.
You're in an interesting place now because you spent much of your time telling stories of stuff that's happened to your experiences you've had. So you're really living in this, you're not living in the past, you're reliving your own history. And I wonder what you think the impact is on you.
It's cathartic. It's like I'm my own shrink. Or these are my shrinks.
Yeah.
Every Sunday, I talk to them and tell them when I met certain people and huge, fun, great things that happened, and also some disappointments that happened.
Right.
So it is cathartic. I found in doing this book and the previous book, I felt compelled. I was sleepless at nights because when you relive a story and when you write it down, it's quite different than telling it.
Yeah.
And a lot of police will say, write it down. You've got to write down what happened. And I found myself calling a lot of people and apologizing for what I did.
That's interesting.
10, 20, 30 years ago, that I didn't realize their side of it. Then I read it in their book.
Right.
Hopefully they read it in my book. Because when there's this thing and you break up with a girl or a guy or a band or a team or your family, you leave home, you don't really know what they're saying, and they don't know what you're saying after you leave.
And if there's enough
and you
anger,
don't know what brought you there even.
Right, you don't know what they're feeling
No.
at any level. Wow, which was the hardest phone call to make, to say sorry?
Whoa. Some I couldn't reach by phone.
Yeah.
Some were emails, which I know were got because you got this little thing that says this was read. To the guys in the Guess Who, to Burton Cummings, Jim Cale, Gary Peterson, upon me leaving at that period of time was a very difficult time in my life. After like an 8 or 9 year struggle, the Guess Who, after guys leaving and Burton Cummings coming in and us achieving what we achieved, and then feeling that kind of implode in late 69, early 70 as our careers blossoming. An American Woman album and single become #1 on the charts, and I start having gallbladder problems, and I can't sleep at night. I'm in a hospital every different night, a different hospital, having these gallbladder attacks and having to go home. And that was kind of a catalyst for, oh, well, we've had enough of this guy, and I'm saying I've had enough of them. And I was pretty straight at that time. I always have been pretty straight, but they weren't. They were like the rest of the culture and the rest of the world in the late 60s.
Party hard, booze and drugs, right?
Yeah. And so this was like a great catalyst. I need to be 3 months off in the summer of 1970. And when you go from $700 a night, like we did, to 10 and 15 and 20,000 a night, and you're in the hole, you take that tour. They took the tour. They got guys to replace me. They went on. who knows what would have happened
Right.
at that. If we had taken some time out then and said, let me rest for a couple of weeks, there's an operation scheduled, let's write some new material. But then if I would have done that, there would have been no Bachman-Turner Overdrive,
Dude, you can't
no
see
taking care of business, no
Yeah.
you ain't seen nothing yet. So that was just one of those things that happened that you look back and you could have a regret on either side.
Look, not that this, I love the Guess Who, but I think B.T.O. were a way more rockin' band.
Well,
Like,
we were. We came out of the pop of the 60s.
Yeah. I mean, it was just rock and roll.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, well, you know, when you left the band, I said, I don't know, man. They were saying stuff about you. You were
Yeah.
saying stuff. It was bad. I want to play a clip I found. Our team found a Burton
no.
back in the day. It's in. First of all, he looks like Janis Joplin, which is a compliment, but it's not a knock. I love her, but take a look at this.
We had just cracked every conceivable international market and gotten our first gold album. And we were selling millions of records and we were making thousands of dollars a night, and the traveling was good, but it was starting to take its toll with each guy, you know? And I guess each guy, at the time there were 4 of us, and each guy kind of reached his limit at a different time along the way. And I think Randy just couldn't hack the traveling, for one thing, because he's more of a family man than the other 3 of us are, or were, or whatever.
I mean, that's.
I didn't hear what he said.
He just came out and said that you know, every guy dealt with the success and the schedule their own way. And
Yeah.
at a certain point, you couldn't hack it because you're more of a family man than they were at the time.
Well, to be away 90 days and have a weekend at home, you go home and your kids cry because they don't know who you are. Right. And you go home, you have another child who you've missed. I'd never seen one of my kids born. Right. And so that really aches.
From what I've seen,
you ache at night. And there was no iPhones, there was no nothing. You had to phone home long distance. And when you phoned home long distance, it'd be $20 or $30. That was your per diems for a couple of days, so you couldn't eat. I mean, that was really lean times. And I really, really was homesick.
Right.
I was married to a beautiful lady. I had Tal was born. My next daughter was on the way. I wanted to be home for my daughter. I had this gallbladder attack every single night in the hospital, not knowing what it was. I didn't know what it was. So I went back to Winnipeg and got diagnosed. I'm just throwing blood and have this terrible pain right there every night, like somebody turning a knife over and over and over. And like, am I dying? What is this? What's going on? I got to get out of here.
Did you like the way they handled it? I mean, you've talked about it in the book that you knew that you were.
I don't think any breakup is handled properly. Do you know what I mean? It's just anybody. Neil and Stephen Stills, their ongoing saga of Buffalo Springfield and Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. It's like, are we on or are we off? Yeah, I'm on. And then he vanishes. Do you know what I mean? It's like you read Neil's book. It's like assorted gatherings of train wrecks, and so is mine. I mean, most lives are. Steve and Tyler, we're all like, here's the wreck, let's go away, let's come back, you know, and it's like personalities collide. They also make great music. The difference of John Lennon and Paul McCartney was Bachman and Cummings, and Jagger and Richards. That difference makes a way better song than me writing the same song 50 times and putting it out as 50 different titles.
True, you know, like Lennon and McCartney, one sings it's getting better all the time, and the other one sang on that same song it couldn't get much worse, right? Yeah. So what makes great art often just makes for really terrible days.
Yeah.
Like, that's quite a place to be in.
Yeah.
But was B.T.O. that same experience?
B.T.O. was kind of different. When I left the Guess Who, nobody would work with me. I was the guy who had left this golden band and was forced to leave Winnipeg, had to move to Vancouver. And consequently went to my younger brothers. I was the oldest of 4 boys. And made my brother Rob, who was 10 years my younger, a little drum set out of those round Ogilvy Quaker Oats things, cut different sizes, and he would play with my mother's wooden spoons. And I would play acoustic guitar, and he would play that way. And then to cut the first album, the Bray Belt album, which became B.T.O., I borrowed Gary Peterson's old set of drums, and Robbie played those. He didn't have a drum set. And so out of that came this music of trying to survive, trying to prove I could make it being straight, because it was said over and over, I could never make it in rock and roll being straight arrow.
That's a huge part of this one. A huge part of this one is that in that era, you were, like now, if you don't drink or do drugs, you're not shunned the way you were properly shunned back then because you just didn't want to do it.
Right.
And I mean, didn't you? I heard that you had so loaded one night you ran over your own foot. I don't know how
that was the last drink I had.
But how is it possible you ran over your own foot?
Pretty easy.
I have been drunk before. How do you run over your own foot?
Well, it was a 2-door car. It was in Winnipeg, blowing in the winter. And those big doors you open where you put the seat for it to get in the back, huge doors. And somebody needed their car moved so somebody else could get out of a driveway. Right. So I got half in the car. One foot was outside. I'm holding the door. The wind is blowing the door and pulling me out of the car.
Right.
I put it in reverse so the guy in the car could back out. And I slip under the car because the wind is blowing and the front wheel goes over my left foot and I'm stuck there. So I put on the brake. And I'm not breaking my feet because it's snow.
Yeah.
That's in Winnipeg. And so all I could do is reach. There's this little chrome thing that's the horn. So I've got a hold of the steering wheel and I'm falling out. And so I'm pushing but my foot's on the brake because I know if I get off the brake, the car's going to run over me, right?
Yeah.
The guy who comes out of the house is my father. And he looks at me and he puts the car in forward and it goes forward and he pulls me out of the car, throws me in the snowbank, gets the guy out, takes me in the house and says, I'm ashamed to call you my son, you're a drunk. That was my last drink.
That's a heavy
That
thing
was
to
it.
hear.
That was it.
There's a big part of one's life that you've always, like your dad's approval is important to you, right? Or what?
I think most people, you look for approval from your mom and dad. Yeah. They are your universe when you're born. And if they're a good universe, you want to... You want to shine. You want to be their star.
Do you think if you didn't have that pressure on you, if people weren't saying that sort of stuff, you know, you can't make it straight, or you left this band, do you think if you didn't have that, you would have been able to write those songs? Like if you had an amicable split with the Guess Who and people loved Randy Bachman?
I don't know, but I know this, and you're going to have some athletes on, right? The Olympic guys. Adversity brings you to the front line, the battle line, and you fight and you fight. It's your life. You fight for your life. And I was fighting for my life.
But based on your realities, you have to make different choices. You were talking about how Neil Young can do whatever Neil Young wants because he's Neil Young. And you had said that you didn't have the confidence to do the things Neil Young was able to do. What did you mean by that?
He still does whatever he wants.
Yeah,
he cancels a tour in the middle of the tour.
Yeah.
Because
he feels like it.
You read his book, it's like, wow, what? He planned a tour with Stephen Still. Stephen got up, he wasn't there. Neil had left. Stephen played a wrong riff the night before or something. You know what I mean? It's like...
Neil's like, screw this, I'm out.
He just kind of does what he wants to do. I tend to look ahead of time at a pro and con kind of thing. Should I do this? There's 9 things here and there's 1 there. Yeah, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And try to balance it out. Because I've done the Neil things and it hurts you. It does. Yeah. When you make really quick, snap, knee-jerk decisions. If I went like this and you went like that and I pulled mine and you didn't punch yours, you'd knock me in the face.
Right.
So it's like the knee-jerk, quick-jerk reactions. I try not to do that anymore. And my manager, Nelson Paquin, is very good. He's a Zen Buddhist guy and he does everything slow. And my lawyer, Stephen Stone, does everything slow. They actually had an interjection with me like 6 months ago. They invited me out to lunch. I said, like, why are we here, guys? Well, we're telling you you're moving too fast and you need to move a little bit slower and you're addicted to this, you're addicted to lawyers and you're trying to think, and it's time to change. And are you kidding? Is this my thing? Is this being filmed? Is this on TV? And it was my kind of interjection.
Lawyers...
And after that, I wrote some letters.
Saying sorry?
To people, saying, I'm sorry, I'm letting this go. I've carried this burden with me for decades and years. It's gone. But what about... And I feel good because it's gone. And whether you feel good or not because you haven't let this go is a totally different thing.
One of those letters to Burton Cummings?
Yeah.
What were you letting go?
Personal issues that we've had for a long time. It's the same as a Lennon and McCartney or Jagger and Richards. Right. You see they're to and fro and they're sparring all the time with one writing a book or doing a solo album and vice versa, and jealousy, and then who gives a heck because we are the Rolling Stones kind of thing.
Did you respond to your letter?
No.
This is the thing about the story between the two of you that's so interesting. You know, that you have these songs together, and there's this really, even when
songs are amazing.
They're amazing, and the dynamic between the two of you is amazing, but you talk about it, for every quarter you got, Burton got 75 cents, and then maybe it's not fair. And did you feel like you were taking it? Is that part of what you were able to let go, that part?
Yeah.
That's a big place to be.
I can't change it.
Wow. How do you feel about that now?
Don't get me started. Have you seen that? Have you seen that comedy skit? Don't get me started. Don't get me started.
Yeah, well...
No, I let it go, so don't bring me back there.
Okay, listen, I'm interested in your personal development as well, so I'm happy to move on. So then, what's the end result is something that's never been done before. So, Juno Hall of Fame.
Yes.
The Guess Who go in.
And in Winnipeg.
Right, but now B.T.O. go in. So I think it's the only time in history where someone's gone in twice with 2 bands.
I think so.
You're the only person in the history of this country's great musical output.
Thanks. Thanks.
So maybe that's part of the blessing, right?
Yeah.
And when you were coming out of Winnipeg, dude, there was no way you could have imagined that this is where the Canadian industry would be now.
No, I had no idea. I would see these guys on the bus. We didn't have cars. Our parents didn't have cars. I had to get on the bus with a little guitar and amp. Burton Cummings would be getting on the bus. I would transfer downtown Winnipeg. Fred Turner would get on the bus with a guitar and amp going to his gig. You know what I mean? Gary Peterson would get on the bus with me with a set of drums. You know what I mean? And luckily, our dad would pick us up after the gig, you know what I mean? Because we were going early.
Well, listen, you traveled everywhere with your
the
guitar.
four guys there, Cummings, Fred Turner, myself, and Neil Young, we're all singing each other and all playing each other's community centers, all with this dream of let's be an Elvis or let's be a Beatles or then next be a Zeppelin or a Hendrix. And suddenly we came out of it and we became ourselves.
Right.
And we're still riding that road to that dream. We're still chasing that dream.
Still.
Yeah.
Well, you would bring your guitar.
I did a new album this year. I'm doing new projects this year, next year.
You did a reissue as well? Right.
The 40th anniversary of Not Fragile is being done with extra songs, with more and in vinyl and in CD. And found 2 live tapes, live at the Oak Brook Forum in Chicago, and live in
Sound
Japan.
City?
Pardon me?
Was that done at Sound City?
Yes, there's a little blurb in Sound City in that
The Dave Grohl movie.
thing. Yeah, there's a little blurb of You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet. Yeah, we mixed it there at Sound City. It was a great... But engineer from Toronto here, Mark Smith, who did all the B.T.O. albums, had moved to LA and said, you got to come to Sound City and meet Joe there. And I went down there, met Joe. So we mixed all our albums there.
It would be no surprise that somebody would see you get on a bus in Winnipeg with your guitar, but you'd bring guitars everywhere. Explain this picture to me. Put that on a basketball court.
I've never seen that.
Isn't that amazing? Put it up here, we can see it. What is going on there? Is that a team
What's going on? Somebody's telling us to pose.
Yes.
I've never seen that. That's Gary Peterson on his knees.
Yeah.
Jim Cale, Burton Cummings, some unknown basketball player. Maybe it's Dennis Rodman. I don't know.
He was in North Korea
Dennis.
at the time.
And me with Burton Cummings' guitar.
Yeah.
Because I never played that guitar. Wow.
So we go back to the late 50s.
Wow, that's amazing.
The West Kildonan Collegiate, is that what it's called?
Kildonan.
Kildonan. Randy Bachman, a guitar strumming mathematician 1 year. This is the Casanova of Room 10. Every day between periods, he can be seen walking the halls with RG, checking over the girls or talking about the weekend splash. He's a very good guitar player. Then the next year, Randy Bachman is another one of those guitar-playing rock and rollers. Of the 3 that are in our room, he is popular with the guys and gals alike and can always be heard exclaiming, luscious. Look at your yearbook photos.
Wow. Oh, and the haircut.
The haircuts are amazing.
These are great.
It's quite luckily so many of these pictures of you back in the day. How about that? What does that mean to you? I mean, that venue.
Wow. Well, the Rancho Don Carlos was a big nightclub in Winnipeg on the edge of town. I was about 15. Les Paul and Mary Ford were playing there.
Les Paul.
I took the bus, went there, went to buy a ticket. The guy said, you can't get in. The drinking age here. Yeah. I was 15 or 16.
Even in Manitoba then?
Yeah. And so I go back out, I'm sitting on the grass. This is way up Pembina Highway, the other side of Winnipeg. I'm in the north end, West Kelowna. Sitting on the grass, a Cadillac pulls up. The window rolls down. Hi, kid, what are you doing? I look, it's Les Paul. Mary Ford's in the front seat. There's a guy in the back. He said, I'm Les Paul. This is Mary Ford. This is my son, Gene. He's drumming tonight. What are you doing here? I said, I'm a guitar player. I came to see you, but I can't get in. He said, come with me. I'll get you in. So we went. I stood,
nuts,
but
man.
I couldn't get in the nightclub.
Yeah.
I stood in the kitchen where there was these big swinging doors that swung both ways where the waiters are going. It was this nightclub, supper club. Yeah. He and Mary Ford had on guitars with long cables, and they went to every table and sang Via con Dios and How High the Moon. But beside me in the kitchen were 8 Ampex tape recorders that he would record with this thing called the pulverizer he'd play the rhythm, play it back, play the lead. She'd sing and sing harmony to herself. And I watched how this was all created. And when that was all done, the show was all done. He came back, wiped his brow, said, hold this kid, gave me his guitar, wiped his brow, went out and did the encore. When he was all done, I thanked him very much. I said, would you show me a riff in How High the Moon? And he showed me this riff. And fast forward like 35 years, I'm opening for Van Halen, B.T.O. We're playing Nassau Coliseum in New York, outside New York. Les Paul comes. He says hi to Sammy Hagar, hi to Eddie Van Halen. He comes up to me and goes, do I know you? And I said, Mr. Paul, the Rancho Don Carlos. He goes, I remember you, kid. Can you still play that riff? Get him a guitar. And I played the riff, and he invited me down the next day to the club, the Iridium that he played at.
Right.
Just to see everybody, because guys would come a pilgrimage to play with him. And he starts announcing this guy in the audience, and it ends up being me. So I go up on stage and play How High the Moon with him and play the riff he showed me, and then he played Taking Care of Business with me.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, yeah.
What a life, man.
Yeah.
That's the thing, right? The rooms you've been in are the sorts of stuff that make people gasp.
Oh.
But it becomes
to me,
your
it's
life.
just a kind of a. I'm a fan of everybody, and same with like Chet Atkins, Lenny Breau, these great guitar players. I'm just a guitar. Most guitar players don't need a manager or a fence around them. You just approach them and talk guitars.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That kind of thing. Just like race drivers or athletes, you don't need the PR people.
Singers are different than guitar players, aren't they?
Are they? Yeah.
Are they?
Well, singers are used to being up front. They're just kind of like, I guess, ego kind of guys.
And they don't have a thing to
No, they don't have
channel.
a prop. I always have the guitar. That's my prop.
Right.
Even my radio show is different because I sit there and strum guitar. That's my Ed McMahon or Paul Schaefer. It's my guitar. I play off it, so.
That's one of the best parts of the show is when you just go.
Start to play.
Stick around more with Randy right after this. I love it, man. Sing.
Sing it again.
Turbo.
These eyes
When are you going to back this summer?
cry every night for you. These arms.
What's that? Super bad. Oh. Yeah. The Dr. Randy Bachman. Super bad. One of the great moments. Do you ever catch yourself
I've never seen that before.
You've never seen that
No.
clip from Super? It's so fun.
I didn't even know it was in there.
It's so fun. Do you ever catch yourself hearing your song on the radio? You turn it up loud, you start singing along, you stop at a stoplight, and someone's looking over at you wondering what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Or they're pounding out the drum beat, and I know they're on the same station.
Yeah, that's right.
And I want to go.
Okay. Here's a tonight only. The Town and Country presents the Mark Parr Show in the Towers. Take a look at this. What does this mean to you? This bill.
The Parade of Stars, that dynamic Judy Scott, she had a big hit. Dum, da dum, da 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 da. I've Told Every Little Star. Phil Neil Young and the Squires chatted on the Reflections. We became
This is
the Guess Who.
64. This is
And Lenny
64.
Breau. And the reason we got that gig tonight only is he had Barbara Streisand in before, told her she couldn't sing and she had a big nose and needed a nose job, and fired her.
Right. He was
and so
wrong.
we got this. He was dealt very wrong.
Yeah.
Because she's got the nose and is beautiful, and she's one of the world's greatest singers.
Of course.
But this was a guy named Aubrey, and he owned and ran the Town and Country. So that's why we got to do this gig. And they just hired Winnipeg. Mickey Young was a Winnipeg singer. Lenny Breau's on there, who was my mentor.
Yep.
And so this is like Winnipeg talent, and Judy Scott, who flew in at the last minute.
This is the summer of 1964. So you're talking. This is before the Beatles put out Help. This is before it gets psychedelic. This is before the entire tone of the 60s changes.
Yeah.
Is right there. Could you sense something was coming, or was it a blind side?
Early on, because I was a big fan of Cliff Richard and the Shadows, I spent my money and sent my money overseas, and every week I'd get Melody Maker and New Musical Express. So I had a scrapbook of Cliff and the Shadows, and suddenly it started to change. It was the Beatles. And so I got the first Beatles album before this was in like late 62, early 63. So a year ahead of that, and we started to do Beatles stuff in Winnipeg, and we were different than every other band. And so, but I sensed that change coming ahead of time, but it was a big change. I watched a few weeks ago the Ed Sullivan 50th, and it brought me to tears many times because that not only changed the whole world, it changed me, it changed everybody around me. Suddenly every guy in every band could sing, because all four of them took turns singing. So the drummer sang the Ringo songs. I started to sing the George Harrison songs because they did it, and they weren't really great vocalists, but together it was a great thing where they were all like a teamwork doing and writing their own songs. It was a big game changer.
Well, Lenny, a lot of guys just end up losing. They'll end up losing the battle. You party too much, you get addicted, things fall apart. When you switched, and I'm sure, and I know you got a lot of grief. Have you talked to people since then, the people who gave you a hard time for going clean? How have people reacted to you now?
Lately, the last 10 years, I've seen these guys again. I go to London a lot. I have a nice flat there in Covent Garden. I go there, and it's fun to be there because nobody really knows who I am. Yeah. So I can go to a restaurant, and unless it's a Canadian who's there. Yeah. And so I see like Plant and Page at a Neil Young concert or something, or Joe Walsh at the Eagles and stuff like that.
Plant and Page,
they come up to me and say, you know, we just figured this out. We had to half kill ourselves. You figured it out decades ago. Just like no drugs, no alcohol, rock and roll, find somebody to love and get loved back, stay healthy, stay alive, and just keep the rock rolling. I say at the end of every show, that's just keep doing the good things. Right. You don't need the bad things. They just bring you down.
I got a clip of you back in the day. Take a look at this interview clip. This is amazing. It's about family as a part.
I'm looking forward to
coming
back and having another hit record or a hit album.
Same hair.
Yeah.
Maybe not quite as successful as the Guess Who, but who knows? But I'm enjoying it a lot more and having more fun because I'm able to look at it from behind.
Wow.
Quite a life, man. How do we, Guess Who's got to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame eventually? How do we do that?
I don't think it'll ever happen. I don't think Jan Wenner will recognize the Guess Who or B.T.O.
He's the guy from Rolling Stone magazine. Why not?
Well, he owns the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
But why
It's
not?
different than the one in Cleveland.
Yeah, but why not?
I don't know. I can't say why not. It just, I'm thrilled that Rush got in there. At least a Canadian band got in there. Maybe it opened the door. I don't know. But much lesser. Not that these bands who get in don't deserve it, but I would say of equal deserving or even more. The Guess Who and B.T.O. should get some recognition there because a lot of other guys all around the world, British bands who've had one or two hits that really didn't, you know, we had #1 records. For Canadian band, the Guess Who and B.T.O. changed the world. We paved the highway out of Canada, across to the States and over to England, and then followed Loverboy and Bryan Adams and every rock band after that.
And the Canadian bands know that, don't they?
I think they do. They have a really nice religious kind of respect, knowing, because it ain't easy being a Canadian band. It's great being a band in California or New York City. You drive 80 miles to your next gig. Here you drive 800. And we're driving through blizzards and mountains and flat tires. And Canadian bands are really rock and roll survivors and really rugged guys.
I believe it.
And so they know what I went through for 8 and 9 years to do it in the Guess Who, and then another 5 or 6 to do it with B.T.O. And I know what they're going through all the time. People only see you on stage or the video where it's all smiley, nicey. It's not that nice.
Boy, and you guys did it when the heat in the cars wasn't that good. All right, time for Anthropology. What's the one thing you would never write a song about?
I'll write about anything.
Anything?
Give me a title, I'll write a song.
I bet you could. Something you don't miss from the 60s.
You got me stumped. I don't miss the drugs. It was everywhere.
Yeah.
It was just everywhere.
And destroying
I saw
people.
really good friends and beautiful people taking LSD and stuff, going into comas and never coming out. Just never, and shooting up heroin stuff and dying on the spot at parties and stuff. And they're 18 and 19 and 20. I don't miss that at all. I mean, it's still going on here. I remove myself. I walked out of every party. There's me and a couple of guys. Frank Zappa was one, absolutely, totally straight. Paul Revere from Paul Revere and the Raiders. Ted Nugent, absolutely straight. We'd go to the party. Half an hour later, everyone's turning into Jekyll and Hyde. Yeah. Time to leave. We made our appearance. We shook hands. We're here. Let's get out of here. It's like crazy time.
Did Ted ever try to get you to go crossbow hunting with him?
He offered me quite a bit of times to come and hang out at his place when he lived in Michigan. I think he's in Texas now.
Yeah. Did you ever take him up on that?
No. He was a little wild. He was wild.
What was Zappa like?
Frank Zappa was a really cool guy. He was a very good model of a businessman. He took these great jazz musicians. I'm talking about the first Mothers in 68, 69, Mother of Invention, with Jimmy Carl Black and his brother and, you know, these incredible jazz musicians. And he took them out of their element, which was LA and San Francisco, and he paid them scale. And he sent the scale home to their wives. And he gave them $10 a day to live and drink on, whatever. Yeah. But the money went home to their wives. And he really showed me he took care of business. And he told me night after night when he offered to buy my 59 Les Paul, he made me realize what it was worth. And that guitar's in the Cleveland Rock and Roll Hall of Fame now on another 3-year loan in Cleveland.
What's the one line that when you're on stage, no matter which, if you're playing something from a Guess Who era or B.T.O. era or whatever, that you just can't wait to hear? You're on stage. Just a song lyric you can't wait to get out there.
The intro to Taking Care of Business is just, it's a mistake. When I picked it up to play it on guitar, somebody had banged my guitar, it was out of tune. And so I went to play it and it sounded funny, and I put it in tune, and then I went and played the funny. Yeah. So when it starts out dun dun, that's not it's supposed to be like a Chuck Berry thing. It's one whole tone out. And when I start that thing, which became my own thing, I took this Chuck Berry thing and through a mistake, made it this signature intro to that song. When I start that and the reaction comes, and halfway through I say, I want to hear some noise, and the crowd screams, and then they all sing Taking Care of Business. And when I did it at the SARS Fest which is like almost 500,000 people.
The Stones played that.
As far the Stones were after us, AC/DC and the Stones were after us. We were on before, and Rush was on there. To see 500,000 people on stage, and about a 20-foot stage, as far as I could see, every horizon, hands in the air, screaming and singing to that song. I went, thank you, God. You know, thank you, the angel of song who shot that arrow at me and hit me in the chest. Amazing.
What was it like touring in the States in the 60s or going down there when you were from Canada? I mean, there weren't a lot of black people in your neighborhood, I'm sure, but going down to America, they were still called race records back then. Things were scary.
There was only white radio. There was black radio. They were called race records. When we went to New York for Shakin' All Over tour, which is 64, 65, the Kingsman Louie Louie tour, they found out we were a great jukebox band. We could copy any song on the radio, because when you're playing dances in Winnipeg, 3-hour dances, you got to sound like the radio. You're basically taking the place of records being spun. And when they found out we could copy anything, we got asked to back the Crystals, the Ronettes, the Shirelles, these 3 or 4 black chicks, and we could replicate the music exactly.
Dude, you're up
so
there
we
with some
went
of
on
the
tour
greats.
with them.
Yeah.
But on the tour, there would be knife fights in the audience between black and white guys with blood everywhere, and you're told, when the fight starts, never stop playing that song. So we played the Do Run Run with the Crystals for like an hour and a half while the National Guard came in and the police came in. Because most people are still dancing.
Yeah.
The minute you stop and they know there's a scuffle, they get in, and guys get in, and people really get hurt.
Unbelievable. So good to see you, man. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Randy Bachman, everybody. There's the bug right here. Tales from Beyond the Tap. We'll be right back. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you so much.